Kia ora, good evening. New Zealand's population now stands at almost 4.25 million, according to Statistics New Zealand figures from Census 2013. The number of people living in New Zealand on census night was 4,242,048, up 214,101 on census 2006. Statistics New Zealand says the population has grown by about 31,000 people a year since 2006, which is slower than recorded at the last census when the population grew by an average of 58,000 annually. As a result of the population increase, the number of electorates at next year's general election will increase from 70 to 71, with the North Island gaining one electorate. Voting returns are slow in the south, well down on previous local body elections. 30% of voting papers have been returned, down on the 36% returned at the same time in 2010. Invercargill returning officer Graham Lowe says people should take care with the preferential voting system being used to determine the Southern District Health Board. He says people have been ticking votes where they should have been listing preferred candidates in order. Mr Lowe has been part of the electoral process since 1975 and has in the past written vote counting software.
I was involved in actually writing the software, so we wrote our own code in-house and developed our own systems for it. Those rules have changed for that now, and we have to get certified programs, so it's actually coming. There's only 2 certified programs in the whole of New Zealand now.
And so what's going on here?
What we're doing here is capturing the votes as they're coming in. So we're not allowed to accumulate the votes or count them at all, but what we're doing is capturing the intentions of the people from the voting papers.
And what will happen then on Saturday morning after those last votes come in?
Saturday morning we will expect the last lot of voting papers in at 12 o'clock. I should remind the people that the offices are open here and at Bluff at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, so you can still drop your votes in then. And then come 12 o'clock, one of the Justices of the Peace and myself will open up the system because it's got a time lock on it currently, and then we can start to count the votes. It takes about 30 seconds.
And as far as the postal votes go, when should people be getting their votes into the mail to get it here on time?
If they're going to put them in the post, I would suggest no later than Wednesday to get them here on time.
And how's it looking at the moment, firstly in Invercargill? How many people have voted?
We're down at this stage. We've got a percentage in of around about 29.9%, which is down on the 2010 election, which was sitting at 36.5 at the same time.
And what was that final total in 2010?
In 2010 we ended up with a 60% total. This time it looks like we're going to struggle to get to 50%, but I am expecting a big day tomorrow from the post.
In your history, doing this sort of work, is that really low? Does that stand out as being low?
It's not low in terms of the whole country. Invercargill's always had a reputation for being one of the highest returns, and last year was one of the highest in the country.
What are you hearing from your fellow returning officers up and down the country? How are things elsewhere?
It's pretty slow right throughout the country. I heard of one city council where there was as low as 17% on Friday, which would be very disappointing.
All right, Graham, a quick word on preferential voting. Are people making mistakes? And of course, you've got to pick your preferred candidates in order.
Yes, that's the DHB vote. We do have some issues with those coming in. Just a reminder to everybody that they need to rank the candidates in order from 1 to whatever. If they tick the papers and it's ticks only, then we have to count that as informal.
What if someone just puts a 1 in, just one vote?
A 1 on its own is acceptable, so you can do from 1 up to 8. But if you go 1, 2, 3, 3, then we can only count the first 2 preferential votes.
And so there are a few papers coming back where people have made a mistake?
There is a number of papers coming through that are being captured as informal because they have ticked the papers rather than numbered them.
Invercargill played host to 300 male singers over the weekend in the first ever National Barbershop Convention. Saturday night was the big night for the barbershop groups with the Show of Champions concert at the Civic Theatre. The audience was treated to a night's entertainment not easily or soon to be forgotten. Most music can be adapted to the barbershop format, from contemporary pop or rock to the more traditional numbers barbershop quartets have been performing for many years. The convention was for New Zealand groups and judged by an international judging panel made up of Australians, Americans and Canadians. The annual spring exhibition was opened on Saturday at the Anderson Park Art Gallery. The exhibition attracted a record number of entries this year, with contributions from 172 artists from around the country on display. 2 major cash prizes were awarded on Saturday night. The E. Hayes & Sons Art Award went to Paul McLaughlin for his photo intaglio print Soldier 5, and the McAllister's Southland Artist of the Year Award went to John Wishart for his charcoal drawing from Lake Hawea. All the work on display is for sale and covers a range of mediums, including paintings, sculptures and charcoal drawings. The exhibition runs at the Anderson Park Art Gallery until the 28th of October. Stay with us. After the break, more from the weekend and a children's author that proves age is no barrier. Welcome back. Age is no barrier for Invercargill children's author Audrey Owen. The great-grandmother didn't start writing until she was 80 and has now published 6 titles since her first book, Lily the Library Mouse. Audrey's books span a range of genres and age groups and were a popular item at the recent Dunkley's Great New Zealand Craft Show in Invercargill. Audrey, how long have you been writing for?
Oh, not very long. I didn't start writing seriously until I was 80. I'm now 85 and I have just published my 6th book.
Where does the inspiration for your writing come from?
Well, I can wake up in the morning with a complete character in my mind. They come to me. I always say, I don't write a story writes me.
What books have influenced you most as a writer?
Well, I am passionately fond of Terry Pratchett. I've got, I think, all of his books.
What are the challenges of bringing your books to the public?
I can't get them out very much because the big publishers will only deal with an agent. I've tried agents in New Zealand and in Australia, but you can't get in. And even if you do get into the big publishers, it can take 2 years before they accept one till it gets on the shelf. So I decided, well, I haven't got time to mess about like that. So I self-publish, and Craig's do the printing for me. And
where can we find your books in Southland?
To buy, well, mostly I have to go to the craft shows. I sell most of them at craft shows. Most of the schools now have them, and the library has 3 copies of each, one on the shelf, one in stock and one on the book bus.
What advice or what message would you give to people who hadn't tried something before and were thinking about trying it out later in life?
Do it. Never let anybody tell you that you are too old to do anything.
An inspirational lady. Bad Girls was the 51st Bluff Drama Club production, and it played to 3 full houses over the weekend. The production was set in a fictional corrections facility called Campbelltown Penitentiary and follows the misfortunes of Doreen Davis, or inmate 74359, as she struggles to come to terms with being locked up for something she didn't do. The supporting cast of 9 other inmates and 3 guards sung their way through the trials and tribulations of life in prison, which included gangs and mischief between inmates and guards. Bad Girls was the original concept of Julie Manson and written by Shelley Perkins and April Fisher, along with input from the rest of the cast. Recently in the South, Dr. Ralph Pimm extolled the importance of relationships in coaching and says teamwork is the essence of life. He says getting a group of people on a common mission and putting the team first creates values and improves people's performance in and out of sport. On his second trip to New Zealand, Margot Sutherland caught up with him recently.
My focus really is on the actual athletes. It's more athlete-centered, and what we're trying to do with our philosophy is try to get the maximum that we can out of each of our athletes. So we're trying to reach them, motivate, inspire them to be the best that they can for the good of the team. And I think that's the key thing right there, that we really try to emphasize the importance of each player in their role to the other players on the team.
Aside from improved performance, what other byproducts come from good coaching?
Yes, I really think that when we look at it, there's such a transfer into life skills. The things that we end up doing, let's say, on the athletic fields, are the same things that would make people successful in the corporate world, in education. I say this all the time, that I believe that sport is a microcosm of life. And that's why I think it's so important, because as we teach young people these life lessons through sport, it helps them learn the things that I hope they will to become productive citizens and eventually make a nation even stronger.
What, in your mind, makes a good coach?
I think there's several things. I think first and foremost, a coach has to be a person of high integrity, because for a coach to be successful, he must create a climate of trust. And so integrity first and foremost, which is really character. The second component is competency. Coaches should really be able to do a great job of understanding the technical aspects of the game, but also they're in the people business. So what they're trying to do is inspire, motivate, unite players into one selfless unit. So when I look at what makes a great coach, certainly character, competency, communication, and with communication, that's communicating and connecting. And before you can do that, you truly have to care. Your team members have to know that you care about them. So caring is another key point. And the last one is coaches have to be courageous. They have to have the courage to make tough decisions and be able to stand up for the right things. So I think that's what it takes to be a successful coach.
That's it from the news team today. Coming up in sport, a wrap-up of the last round of the ITM Cup.